Welcome to Psychology of Humans. Today, we're diving into the work of Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who reshaped how we understand the human mind. If you've ever wondered why you repeat certain patterns, why parts of yourself feel hidden, or why life feels like a journey toward becoming who you're meant to be, Jung has answers. His concepts of the shadow and individuation remain two of the most influential ideas in modern psychology, self-development, and even spirituality. In this video, I'll break down Jung's ideas in simple, practical language, showing you exactly how shadow work functions, why it matters, and how the path of individuation can transform your life. Let's begin with the foundation. Jung's belief that the human mind is not a single, unified structure. Instead, it's a collection of parts, some conscious, others hidden. Most people identify only with the surface-level version of themselves, their habits, opinions, likes, dislikes, strengths, and weaknesses. But Jung argued that beneath that awareness lies a vast psychological world, and in that world sits what he famously called the shadow. So, what exactly is the shadow? In Jungian psychology, the shadow represents the parts of yourself you reject, deny, suppress, or refuse to acknowledge. These are aspects of your personality that you push out of awareness because they conflict with the image you want to present to the world. It could be anger, jealousy, insecurity, selfishness, pride, laziness, or even positive traits like creativity, strength, ambition, or leadership that you've been conditioned to hide. Jung emphasized that the shadow is not inherently bad. It's simply the part of you that has been pushed out of sight. The shadow isn't created intentionally. Instead, it forms as you grow up and learn what behaviors are praised, punished, or ignored. If your parents valued compliance, you may hide your assertiveness. If your school rewarded achievement, you may bury your vulnerability. If your social circle criticized sensitivity, you may push away your emotional side. The shadow forms naturally as we adapt to gain acceptance. It's the psychological cost of belonging. Jung argued that every human being has a shadow, no exceptions. And for most people, the shadow controls them far more than they realize. This leads to emotional triggers, self-destructive patterns, impulsive reactions, and repeating the same relationship or life problems over and over again. He famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." In other words, you cannot escape the shadow by ignoring it. You can only escape its control by facing it. So how do we recognize the shadow in everyday life? Jung believed the shadow reveals itself in projections. A projection happens when you assign your own disowned qualities to someone else. For example, you might call someone arrogant without realizing you also possess pride. You might criticize someone for being lazy while ignoring your own avoidance. You might judge someone for being needy while refusing to acknowledge your own unmet emotional needs. When something about another person irritates you disproportionately, that is often your shadow trying to speak. Projections are not faults, they're clues. They show you what part of yourself you've ignored or suppressed. And once you learn how to track these patterns, you begin to see your psychological blind spots clearly for the first time. Jung believed that noticing your projections is one of the most important steps in shadow work. But shadow work is more than simply recognizing what you dislike about yourself. It's about reintegrating those parts, understanding them, accepting them, and learning what they can teach you. The shadow holds enormous energy. Inside, your suppressed anger is your strength. Inside your jealousy is your desire for growth. Inside your insecurity is your longing for connection. Shadow work doesn't mean becoming flawless. It means becoming whole. Jung believed that the ultimate goal of life is individuation, the process of becoming your true self, the person you were always meant to be beneath all the conditioning, expectations, and masks. Individuation is not about self-improvement in the typical sense. It's not about becoming someone better, it's about becoming someone truer. Individuation means integrating the hidden parts of your psyche so you stop living in conflict with yourself. You no longer need to pretend or suppress. You become aligned, internally consistent, authentic, and grounded. Individuation requires self-honesty, self-acceptance, and self-awareness. It demands that you face not only the things you dislike about yourself, but also the parts you've been too afraid to express. Many people suppress their potential because it feels safer to stay small. They hide their ambition because they fear failing. They hide their assertiveness because they fear conflict. They hide their creativity because they fear judgment. Individuation challenges all of that. It's the journey of remembering who you are, not who the world taught you to be. One of Jung's most powerful ideas is that the shadow contains treasure. He called it the gold in the shadow. This means that buried within your rejected parts are the very qualities you need to grow. For example, someone who rejects their anger might discover hidden courage. Someone who suppresses their sensitivity might uncover emotional intelligence. Someone who denies their ambition might find deep purpose and drive. The qualities you push away often hold the key to your evolution. Shadow work isn't done through force. It happens through awareness. Instead of judging your reactions, you observe them. Instead of suppressing uncomfortable feelings, you let them surface with curiosity. Instead of blaming others, you look inward to see what part of yourself is being reflected back. and instead of rejecting your flaws, you ask what they might be trying to teach you. Jung also emphasized the role of dreams in uncovering the shadow. Dreams bypass the conscious mind and reveal hidden desires, fears, conflicts, and unresolved emotions. Jung believed that your dreams speak in symbols, and those symbols point to the parts of yourself you haven't yet integrated. While many people ignore their dreams, Jung saw them as one of the most direct pathways into the unconscious. Another important concept in Jungian psychology is the persona, the social mask you wear to appear a certain way. The persona is not inherently bad. It helps you navigate society. But problems arise when you identify too strongly with the persona and forget the deeper self behind it. The persona hides the shadow, and the shadow exposes the limits of the persona. Individuation is the process of balancing both, understanding the role you play in the world without losing the authentic self beneath it. So how can you begin your own process of shadow work and individuation? Start by paying attention to your emotional triggers. These are moments when your reaction is bigger than the situation. The irritation, anger, defensiveness, or embarrassment you feel is often a signal that a piece of your shadow has been activated. Instead of reacting automatically, pause. Ask yourself, what is this really about? What part of myself am I avoiding right now? Over time, you'll begin to see patterns. Next, look at your recurring life problems. The relationships that keep ending the same way, the habits you struggle to break, the opportunities you sabotage. All of these patterns point toward unconscious dynamics. Jung believed that repetition is the psyche's attempt to draw attention to unresolved issues. When you face the shadow consciously, those destructive cycles begin to dissolve. Another powerful method is journaling. Writing helps you bring the unconscious into awareness. Ask yourself questions like, what qualities in others bother me the most? What traits do I admire but feel I lack? What emotions do I avoid? What am I afraid people might discover about me? The answers to these questions reveal the shape of your shadow. But shadow work isn't only about the negative. It's also about reclaiming the positive qualities you've hidden. Maybe you were told not to be too confident, so you suppress your leadership. Maybe you were told to be realistic, so you bury your creativity. Maybe you were told to fit in, so you silence your uniqueness. Jung believed that one of the most liberating parts of individuation is reclaiming your forgotten potential. The journey of individuation is lifelong. It's not a quick fix or a self-help trend. It's a deep, ongoing relationship with yourself. And although it can be uncomfortable, it leads to a profound sense of freedom. You stop being controlled by your fears, your patterns, and your unconscious habits. You become capable of making choices aligned with your true nature. You feel less fragmented, less conflicted, and less dependent on external validation. Jung's work teaches us that self-awareness is not about perfection, it's about integration. It's about making peace with every part of yourself, even the parts you wish you didn't have. True growth comes from wholeness, not from pretending to be flawless. When you embrace your shadow, you gain emotional resilience. You become less reactive, less defensive, and less easily triggered. You stop taking things personally because you understand your internal landscape. You learn to navigate conflict with clarity instead of fear, and you gain the ability to handle life's challenges with grounded stability. Jung's ideas also extend beyond the individual. He believed the shadow exists collectively in cultures, societies, and groups. When groups deny their flaws, they project them onto outsiders. This creates conflict, discrimination, and division. By understanding your personal shadow, you become better equipped to navigate the collective shadow. You learn empathy, patience, and tolerance for complexity. You stop seeing the world in simplistic good versus evil terms, and develop a more mature understanding of human behavior. Ultimately, Jung's work reminds us that self-awareness is a courageous act. It requires looking at the parts of yourself you'd rather keep hidden, but the reward is immense. Authenticity, clarity, emotional strength, and a deeper connection to who you really are. Individuation is not becoming someone else. It's becoming yourself, fully and unapologetically. When you integrate your shadow, you reclaim your energy, your power, and your potential. You stop living on autopilot and start living consciously. And that is the path to psychological freedom. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.